another edition of Work Your Career Wednesday. As always, I'm Bradley Clark. Very, very special guest today. Been trying to get Mr. Spera on the podcast for a minute now, and finally he's found some time. But let me go into a little bit before we get to you, Ken, because this is amazing, and I want everybody to know exactly who you are. So you are an award. Award winning. Let me put it this way. Years ago, I had 1,000 square foot condo. Pretty big for California. The amount of awards Ken has won would fill it all. Floor to ceiling, period. End of story, full stop. He is an industry veteran. Okay, I'm reading this because this is awesome, man. Did you have AI do this, Ken?
No, that was written by a human.
Amazing. Industry veteran who brings more than 30 years of brand building experience to the Redroc team. He is with Redroc in Austin. Great firm. He cut his advertising teeth at the Martin Agency in Richmond, Virginia, and then became the SVP creative director at Donor, and that's where we met in Detroit. In his storied career, Spera has created breakthrough marketing for such iconic brands as GEICO. Gonna get to that. You may have seen the lizard. I don't know. Serta, you may have seen the sleeping sheep. Progressive Auto Insurance, Mazda, Chrysler, Cox Communications, UPS, and so much more. Spera was part of the two-man team that won and directed the GEICO account. In his 6 years building that brand, he helped propel GEICO to global recognition. And in his work, he has won numerous awards, and his creation of the GEICO Gecko found him a place in the advertising icon hall of fame. Let me put it this way. The stuff that Ken has worked on, the banners on the Madison Avenue Walk of Fame, if you look up, you're probably seeing a creation from Ken Spera. Without further ado, please make welcome the man, the myth, the legend, and my friend, Ken Spera. And I mean it.
Well, thanks for that introduction. Wow, this guy sounds like he knows what he's doing.
I tell you what, man. You are incredible. And I can't tell you enough, and I won't let you forget how much I appreciate you coming on today.
Well, Bradley, you read that flowery introduction, and the interesting thing is when you and I met, I had, for the first time in my career, been let go from a position, from a job. And here I was, 50 plus years old, had talked to several recruiters, and I just felt completely unmarketable. And I was like talking to recruiters, and they were telling me, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And then I talked to you, and I think I found you on LinkedIn or something. You weren't even a recruiter in the ad business, right? But you talked to me anyways. And after talking to you, I felt like I was worth something, that I could conquer the world. And it changed the trajectory of that point of my life. And I don't want to get mushy, but it changed my life for the better.
Brother, my heart is completely full from that, man. Thank you.
Well, it's just a testament to how positivity does affect people, right? Like I said, you weren't going to find me a job because you weren't a recruiter for creative and ad, in the ad industry. You were a recruiter, and I was like I was a drowning man. And I don't know. It was just like you refused to accept that I was not marketable or valuable.
Absolutely. 1,000%. And you know what? Let me tell you what you did for me. So, I had been doing tech for so long, and I had always wanted to get into that space, to the creative space. But, my contacts in entertainment industry, and even when I worked contract, for I can't name the record labels, but different record labels or whatever, I had never really recruited anyone of your stature for that industry, And when we when we connected, I just couldn't believe who was on the other end of that phone. I mean, it really, I was shocked that there had been so many people that had made you feel that way, you know? And that's a real big problem in the industry. I think one of the things that really unnerves me, particularly now, because we're talking about AI, and we'll get into that. We're talking about, you know, folks that it's the equivalent. You know, you can put a bunch of tools in front of someone and say, okay, go get candidates, go get a job. But if you're not teaching them how to do it, you can have all the, you know, you can't automate education. I'm sorry, you just can't. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, because people aren't training recruiters anymore, really, and they're not able to see through, you know, see a resume, but see past the resume to the person. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, you know, your resume is a business card, you know. So what does that business card say? And I am telling you, you know, it's funny. So we connected that way and just became close friends through the years, man. You know, and you're the type of guy that, like, we don't have to talk for like a year or two, and we pick right back up as soon as we talk to each other. You know, so I'm telling you, I value your friendship. I can't tell you how much I value it, and really, you know, talk about divine intervention. You know what I mean? Well, because you opened the door for me. Real quick, you opened the door for me for getting into that business. And that because of you, I was able to create an entire division at that company. Yeah. Focused on creative. And, you know, so anyway, I'm going to show.
Well, I think, you know, for people who do what you do, I would say the lesson there is, you know, treat everyone with value. And that seems like common sense. Yeah. But, and not to overdo it, like, oh, you know, you walk on water and, you know, you're going to get a job. I mean, you were realistic with me as much as you could be, but the positivity and, you know, was really a building block for what I ended up doing and getting the job I wanted. And I think I was out of work for a month, which felt like an eon to me, but I'd never experienced before. So even though I was a veteran in the industry at that time, this was a very new experience for me. So I was like a young baby coming to you.
Well, we even discussed, because your recruiter, or I don't know if you used a recruiter or not, but we even discussed your offer, you know, what it should be and how you should negotiate it and all that kind of, or whoever, you know. So it's just a testament to really just seeing the person, you know, before the placement. So let me ask you this, and, you know, I know the story, but my audience doesn't. How did you get into advertising?
That's actually, believe it or not, a good story. So I graduated as an illustrator, as an artist. And so I was an illustrator. I was just not an illustrator who was working, because that's a freelance gig, right? Usually an illustrator, a full-time illustrator, is working as a freelancer. And it was terrifying. I was just out of college and I wasn't getting the jobs frequently. And I was getting married in a few months. And
oh, geez.
I was like, my mother, or my future mother-in-law, was giving me, you know, applications to Philip Morris, the cigarette manufacturer in Richmond. She's like, they have good benefits. And so
you better.
And so I saw an ad in the paper. This is when there were newspapers, and it said it was for an in-house advertising department for a furniture company. They were looking for an artist. And I was like, well, it's a full-time job. So I go in and I get an interview. I go in and I have my portfolio. Now, Bradley, my portfolio at the time was drawings and illustrations, children's book illustrations, nude drawings from Life Drawing Class. I showed this creative director. I showed her everything. I showed her
draw me like your French girls, Ken.
did not say that. But so she was nodding very politely, and she said, do you know what this job is? And I said, I assure you, I know you don't see any illustrations of furniture, but I can draw a couch.
Chair.
I can draw a chair. I can do a gun cabinet. And
yeah.
she just laughed how naive I was. She goes, no, this is a production artist, someone who lays out, a layout artist, someone who lays out our ads and our circulars. And I was like, oh.
Well, I can do that too.
Yeah. And so she took a chance on me. And I owe her a great debt that she didn't just laugh me out the door for being a buffoon and a neophyte, which I was. And that really was the start of it. I got into this in-house department. I was making, furniture flyers for the newspaper and direct mail. And that was my introduction. And then the Martin Agency was looking for a production artist. And the Martin Agency, if you guys don't know, they do GEICO, they do UPS, they do Discover.
They're kind of a big deal.
They're kind of a big deal, and they're a very, very hard agency to get into, rightfully so. They do such great work. But I was lucky to get in at a really low level, but really I worked my ass off, and about a year later, I was promoted to an art director. And I mean, I have to say, there were people that I met there that really believed in me, and I don't know why, but that you can't manufacture that kind of luck. I mean, I worked hard. I was a hardworking guy, but I did meet people that seemed to think that I had potential and took the time to develop it and partner with me. And so I was really fortunate to have people that believed in me and became friends, very good lifelong friends. But one of them was a gentleman named Randy Belcher, and he was a writer. He is a writer. He's a brilliant writer. And we teamed up together as an art director writer team. And they put us on a little pitch for an insurance company called GEICO.
An insurance company that even at that time was like 1 million years old.
Yeah, they had been around since the Great Depression. And so the GEICO stands for Government Employee Insurance Company, and they would only insure government employees because they knew that those were the people who had salaries during the Depression. Right. So that's where they kind of started their business. But at the time, they were kind of way behind, Allstate and some of the big names, in insurance. And they came to the Martin Agency hoping to get the kind of marketing that would push them to the forefront of people's minds when they were considering insurance. And we did that. And
you sure did.
They believed in us.
And you did that by how? We
did it very differently. At the time, insurance marketing was very serious. This is a business, an industry where you give them money and you hope you never get it back, right? Because that means if you get it back, that means you've had an accident or something that. So I don't know what other industry you do that, where you just hand over money and say, keep this. I don't want it back.
Not sure there is one. I think insurance is the only one.
And so insurance companies know that. So at the time, they're like, we got to be serious when we do our marketing. We have to tell people that, we're here to count on. You can count on us. We've got your back. This is not frivolous stuff. We're taking people's money and we're keeping it unless they need it. So let's not be funny. And I don't know if I knew how to do anything else at the time. I was just like, everything has got to be funny. Everything has to be funny.
Right.
But I knew it could cut through and break through. And so we presented, after we won the account, we presented a very funny campaign. And, to GEICO's credit, they said, yeah, let's try it. Let's do it.
That was what? On a napkin.
Oh, well,
creation.
You're hunting for the specific story about.
I want you to say it. I want you to say it, not just type it. I want you to say it. What did you and Randy create on a napkin. I think you guys were out at lunch.
Yeah.
It was lunch, right? And you guys are banging your head against the wall and you're like, it's insurance, just like what you said. It's like insurance, man. Oh my gosh. You know what, dude? And then
well, I don't know if it was quite that magical. They had told us one of the problems was that people didn't know how to pronounce their name, Gecko. And that always was funny to me that people would pronounce their name Gecko. So I drew a picture of this lizard. And
thank you.
And I showed it to Randy, and he came up with the story that, well, what if people call this poor little guy asking him for insurance quotes constantly, and he's just sick of it. He's just tired. He's like, I cannot help you people. And so we created this
Stop calling me.
Exactly.
And he just had to be British. It was a British gecko. Did they even have geckos in England? I don't know.
It was just
I'm
funny.
trying to find, oh God, I love it, the telephone. And then I think I found it.
It's on my website.
Oh, well, I got the blur on. Oh, come on, Bradley. I can't take the
mess. That's, you can kind of see it. But yeah, it was this is really quick doodle.
Gary the Gecko.
Well, and that's
so awesome.
The name we gave him, but I don't know if the agency supports that. So
I think, wait a minute. He's just the GEICO Gecko. Like, he doesn't have a name.
They did
his name. So this is an exclusive right here at Work Your Career Wednesday. The GEICO Gecko's actual name is Gary.
Gecko is out of the bag. You're right.
So you guys, I just want to say it. We created the GEICO Gecko.
So we created the GEICO Gecko. It was a 15-second spot, Bradley. A 15-second spot.
Wow.
It was one of 6 spots we produced. And at the time, the only way to get an insurance quote from GEICO was to call them.
And you told them to stop calling you.
Yeah.
And my God, that's brilliant. So good.
So here, this poor little guy saying, stop calling me. And that didn't work because the phones rang off the hook to the point where they had to hire more telephone operators to answer the phone. And I remember the client meeting with us going, we should do more of those lizard spots.
I got to tell you, I remember that spot as a kid. And when I first saw it, I was like, what in the world is that? And there he is. There he is.
1996. I think it's 96 that it came.
Yeah, I was what was I? 18? 18. I was 18. Yeah. 18. Okay, so a young man. But I was just like, I remember going like, what in the world is that? And I don't know why that character stuck out for me.
I don't know either.
Well, I was in the business. And so, constantly trying to get commercials or whatever acting gig I could get at the time. And I would really study commercials. And then, but the one that's like the press conference one sticks out, obviously.
That was the first one, right?
Which is, I thought that was so weird. I was like, that's the first one? Like, wow. Because it's like one of those characters, one of those commercials that you feel like has always been there. That's the magic of that spot too, is that for me anyway, I felt like it was always there. Like, of course I know Gecko or the guy. Okay. Of course I know GEICO. Of course. I'd never heard of GEICO. What's GEICO? But I've heard of it, and the brilliance of it, having the lizard come on, having Gary come on, and crawl around the microphone and tell people to just stop calling me. It's the adage of the tree in the garden. You know what I mean? Tell somebody not to do something.
Right.
Tell somebody, I'm just so overwhelmed. Stop it. Oh my gosh. And so for me, just as a kid, and at that point, a recent car owner, because I didn't get a car until I was 18.
Right.
I thought, wow, okay, are they new? No, they're not new. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and then the telephone spot. That's the one that I remember vividly. Like the press conference one, yeah. And in 15 seconds. It was a 15-second ad.
Right.
And then the phone is the phone commercial. I really remember that one. And then after that, all of them, you know. So whenever I see Geico, I think of that lizard, and they became a household name because of you and your partner. Amazing, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
They're a globally recognized brand of that icon. Yeah, it is crazy, and
it's an icon.
That lizard is older than my children, and as old as some of the people who work for me today. So it's crazy how long it's been around, and
it stands the test. It's such an icon.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't run it if it didn't work, Bradley. They're not doing it for sentimental reasons. They do it because it works. So
they're certainly
smart marketers.
Well, and then so like you have created iconic, like the Serta sleeping sheep. As soon as I saw that Wallace and Gromit, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. My mom loves the Serta sleeping sheep.
Well, they're actually the counting sheep.
Or counting sheep. The counting sheep. I call them sleeping sheep, but the counting sheep.
I was very fortunate to work on that account. And Aardman, which is the animation company out of Bristol, England, they do Wallace and Gromit. And they initially were animating the sheep as claymation, like they do many of their features. But we moved it into a CG, computer generated animation ultimately. And but we tried very hard to keep it to look like it was claymation, just because the character of Aardman is so distinct, and we love it so much. We want to keep that. Now that's another idea that's based on conflict, right? So the Gecko's initial idea was like, Geico is causing me heartache, right? I keep on getting calls about insurance quotes. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Now the counting sheep, their job is to be counted so people can fall asleep. But because the Serta mattress is so extremely comfortable, no one needed to count them anymore. So most of the spots were based around a couple in bed saying, "Sorry guys, you're out of work." And so that's where the dynamic tension, was developed.
Well, you feel so bad for them.
You do.
You're like, oh my gosh, they're out of work. I want to count. I'll count them. I'll count the sheep.
There was some pity counting going on in some of the spots.
I tell you, I certainly did. So, I mean, and we could go through the list. I think, there's a few things that I know my audience will want to ask you, particularly if they're in marketing or creative in and of themselves. I think, now we live in such an automation time. We live in such a hit a button and have it do it for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think creativity, and you're in the business, and even though you're an executive, because I know you're still in the trenches.
Oh yeah.
You are not an absentee landlord by any means. You know what I mean? And so, you've worked at least two of the biggest agencies on the planet in terms of iconic and whatever, and some of the best reputation. Redroc, amazing reputation, amazing stuff you guys do. With all of that, do you feel like there's simply been a pivot or a change, or do you think that creativity is becoming like it's being stifled in some way at the collegiate level?
Well, let me talk a little bit about AI and why it even exists, because a lot of clients, smaller clients, don't feel like agency creative or top level creative is within their price range, or even attainable. They don't have the money to hire an agency that could come up with a GEICO Gecko for them, which I think is not accurate. I think if they looked into it, so there are a lot of smaller agencies that would love to work on any account and any brand. But so there was a need, right? There's a need for creative that can be done by non-creative people. And that's why I think AI developed the ability to do it right and come up with imagery. And so, maybe it's our own fault that we were too inaccessible, or people just didn't feel like they had access to good creative services. Either way, we're at a point now where there are tools that will create things out of thin air. And
we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah. Now, I have an opinion on how original or successful those things can be. And it still takes a very creative person to edit or to use it correctly, or figure out even what to ask AI to create. So it's another tool. It's a very robust.
It's a tool, but it's a tool, but to be used as a tool. It's kind of like the shot heard around the world, Bobby Thompson. And he gets he gets accused of the same thing my Astros got accused of, right? And well, more power to him, but at the same time, he can get every sign known to man. He's still got to hit the ball. You're
right.
And that's how I think that's how I feel, sort of with this AI. Look, if you want to go and try to get ideas, great. But it seems to me, in order to make those words have a soul or have meaning, to create a GEICO Gecko, it's like butterfly wings, right? Like the
butterfly effect.
Yeah, butterfly effect. Once, so now the GEICO Gecko is out there. Yeah. So now it's like, okay, it's kind of like Mickey Mouse. The mouse is out there. So now what are we going to do? But isn't it going to take something beyond,
these things aren't random. I mean, you might think, well, this guy came up with a cute lizard. He got lucky. There was relevance, right? There's huge. Look, every time you say gecko, you're actually kind of saying the client name. So there's that, right? There was a reason for him to exist. It wasn't just that he was cute and weird. There was connection to the brand name. There was connection to what customers were already doing. They were mispronouncing the GEICO name. So it was based on a strategic approach. It wasn't just, just thought up and, oh, that'll be funny. We made it funny. And that's why people like it, but it still had relevance. And AI doesn't really do relevance very well. It does. Yeah. You have to instruct it. You have to make sure that you prompt it correctly. And I've found that prompting is AI visually or the written AI like ChatGPT. The better the prompt, the better the product you're going to get. That's true with anybody, Bradley. The better you prompt me, the better the idea I can come up with for you. It's about, it's about the right prompt. Very important.
Very important. It's a very, very important. All right. Stick around. We're going to take a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to have a lot more with Ken Spera. Stay tuned.
White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films. You'll be glad you did. White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films. You'll be glad you did.
Everybody, boy, oh boy, we are having fun today. And thank you so much again for joining us. We're here with Ken Spera. I would say advertising industry icon. And I mean, that's just not me saying it. He's in the Advertising Hall of Fame. So literally, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I really didn't.
I was surprised to find that out myself. There's two things, well, that I'm in. There's probably more, but Bradley, advertising people love to give themselves awards and make up these awards to give each other. So I have a very good friend. He's not in the ad business at all. And I remember I was working late all week, and he kept on asking me, "What are you doing? Working so late?" I said, "I'm getting the award show entries ready." And he's like, "Award show for what?" Right. And I was like, "For the Addy Awards." And he's like, "What's an Addy Award?" I said, "These are awards that are given out annually to the best creative work in the advertising business." And he goes, "Well, who determines it?" I was like, "Advertising people." And he's like, "So you made up awards to get yourself."
Vote for, that's right.
I'm like, well, if you put it that way, it doesn't sound very important.
Well, the Grammys are the same way.
Yeah, there you go. See,
the Grammys are the exact same way. Who do you think who are voting? You know, it's if you're a member of the Academy, then there you go. That's right. But I think it's wonderful.
So there's the Advertising Icon Hall of Fame, which is in Kansas City, Missouri. And then the Madison Avenue Walk of Fame, which actually has plaques on Madison Avenue on the sidewalk, which is cool.
Yeah, very cool. And forgive me, but Mr. Spera's work is littering Madison Avenue as we speak, and will be there forever. Yeah. But man, I'm loving what we're talking about. You're one of the people that really came up from the trenches. When you say I was promoted to an art director, I mean, how odd does that sound when you have so many people that are coming out of college expecting to be an art director, to the point that now we have junior art director as a title? I mean,
well, I think there's a lot of talk about younger people having higher expectations, and and that's a kind of a crotchety old guy. These kids don't know what and I really work hard, Bradley, not to have that attitude. Like, well, it took me years to, and their experience is not my experience, and all I can do is be committed to helping them grow and grow their career. That's all I can do. And I don't care what you want to call yourself, but in advertising, in the creative part of it, the quality of your work ultimately is what decides how successful you are. And there's no climbing the corporate ladder based on how nice you are or pretty or handsome. If the work is great, you'll do well. If it sucks, you won't. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, the ad agent, the ad game, the madmen and women, it does not suffer fools.
No.
Like it's ruthless. I think it's even, I think it's even more ruthless than like acting or music.
Maybe.
Like you guys are no joke. You want to talk about one, like, just as far as business people go, no one can match somebody that's been in the ad agency game. And you guys really, and but what's wonderful, and what's wonderful about you is that you have an incredibly thick skin.
Oh, you have to.
But you You have to. But you've maintained, I don't want to say a soft heart, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have, you'll listen, and you've told me more than once, somebody helped me.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I've had my fair share of brutal put downs or get this shit out of my face kind of moments, but that's what you have to be tough with. You have to go, okay, that's all right. I didn't sell this idea. And there's a lot of reasons why, you can work doesn't go through. Could be an ego, could be, the creative director that you're showing it to wants to sell their own work. There's a lot of, there's a lot of ego and,
how much,
it's bad.
How much and I hear that, but how much of this business would one have to, in order to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
How much self-reflection does one have to do? Like you just said, like if you didn't sell it for whatever reason, but maybe your pitch just sucked, and we're in a day and age where it's like, oh, it's okay, get him next time. And there's something to be said for positivity, but you're not loving someone, if you want to use that term, if their work is really bad and you encourage their bad work. So how much self-reflection does it take to be successful in what you do?
I think there's a phenomenon. I would say if I have one criticism or warning for younger creatives, you work really hard on something, sometimes for weeks, and you hand it over to the creative director or even the client, and they go, now, and they, callously toss it aside in seconds. And in your mind, you're going, I worked really hard on that. They need to know how hard I worked on it. And the reality is how hard you worked on it ultimately doesn't matter that much, right? It's really about the quality of the idea. So if you spend a lot of time on an idea that's not strategically relevant or, clever or whatever the criteria is that it's not hitting on, it's not going to get sold. And I think sometimes younger people, and I probably did this myself, is like, if they just knew the blood, sweat, and tears I put into this idea, they would change their mind. And they don't, Bradley. They base their decision on whether they think it's going to work for their business, or you think it's strategically relevant, or it's speaking to the right audience. And that's the only way it's judged, not on effort. And it's a hard thing to understand, like, how dare you reject this idea? Because I really worked hard on it and I loved it and I crafted it for weeks. And mom and dad would never have that reaction to my work.
Well, and if you have that sort of attitude and you project it, particularly to a client, right?
Yeah.
They might look at you and go, so you really worked hard on that, huh?
Yeah. Right.
Pick another profession. Because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you work that hard on something that isn't going to fly, then, something was wrong. I love that though, because I have been trounced early in my career, big time. And I felt this small.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade it for the world.
It's very personal, isn't it? If you write a song, it's very personal. Dude. You create a design or a logo, it is a piece of you. Yeah. And as a fine artist, you're ultimately, you have the final say on what you display or try to sell.
Yeah.
But in advertising, it's so collaborative. You've got your fellow creatives, your creative director, your teammates, the account team, maybe the president of the agency. Oh, and then it has to go to the client, and then maybe the client's niece. Right. And then, you know what I mean? There are a lot of hurdles to sell work in advertising. And so you do, like you said, have to have this tough skin, because it can be shot down for a wide variety of reasons and by a wide group of people. And not too many things in this world have to go through quite that many hoops to actually get sold.
People don't understand that when they look at an ad, when you talk about effort, when you look at an ad, and I don't care what it is, it's out there. the public is seeing it.
Yeah.
That ad has gone, like you said, how many layers? Like at least 15 or
bigger
more.
The ad, the
bigger
the more the layers.
That's right. The bigger the ad, the more the layers. And so nothing goes to print, if we can use that now. Nothing goes to print without all of those layers agreeing. And it's just, you know.
And that was what was special about the GEICO years. The company had entrusted Ted Ward, who was their chief marketing officer. They had trusted him, and he was the final say. And he was like, "Go with it, let's do it." And I'd never seen a client so decisive and willing to take chances, because I think he knew inside, we're gonna, at the very least, we're gonna be different from everybody else out there.
Right. What do you think of State Farm ads? The Jake from State Farm ads? I liked them. What do you think?
I don't know. It's like this guy hanging out with his rich athlete friends. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's an interesting campaign. It started with that one spot, right, where the guy is calling Jake from State Farm at 2:00 in the morning. His wife catches him. She thinks she's caught him, cheating on her. And
she's ready to go.
Who is this? And he's like, Jake from State Farm.
She sounds hideous.
She's a guy. Brilliant spot. And it was so popular, they made Jake into a character. They changed his nationality, or his from a white guy to a black guy. And I like the actor, the current actor. He's very likable, and I think they really.
But it's not the same, though. It's not the same. I don't know.
No, not the same as that first spot. But
that
you
first
only
spot,
have one first spot, Bradley.
I'll tell you what, it only takes one. Like a song, you know what I mean? But I like that first spot. I like that they're kind of entertaining now. I kind of like them.
He's very likable. I think they got a really good actor. Yeah.
Oh yeah. What's one of the hardest campaigns you ever worked on?
I worked on
and I mean the level of difficulty, meaning it was just hard.
Well, it was a hard lesson. I worked on a campaign for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so this was a little out of my comfort zone. It wasn't humorous. It was supposed to be very serious, right? This was about staying healthy. And so it was these videos from our children in the future talking to their parents. And like one guy was saying, "Hey mom, it's me 20 years later." And he's standing next to a baby crib. And he's like, "I want you to take care of yourself, because I want you to be here to hold your grandchild." And then there was another one where this young woman says, "Hey dad, it's me, your daughter, 15 years from now. I'm getting married today, and I want you to be healthy enough to walk me down the aisle." Very sweet, just beautiful idea. And so we picked a really bad director, and the actors weren't particularly good. And just, we flubbed it. We flubbed it. And the spots came out just lukewarm, and they had so much potential. And the president of the agency came up to me and he asked me, like, who did those spots? And I said, well, we had all these problems. The director didn't do what we asked, blah, blah, blah. And I like 5 minutes of excuses. And he goes, "I didn't ask you that, Ken. I asked you who did those shitty spots."
And you're like, me.
And that's it, right? You're only judged on the work, not the effort.
Now think about this. This is a story from someone in the Hall of Fame. If there's any, I mean, every creative director, every art director, every graphic designer, every person in this business, every creative, every marketing manager, everyone that is watching this right now, getting a master class from Ken Spera. He had his boss come up to him, "Who gave us this crappy spot?" And he goes, "I did." After he tried to deflect, he goes, "That's not what I asked you. Who did this?" And he had to go, "Me."
Because Bradley,
that is so big.
It doesn't matter about the process. I mean, obviously when you're in the process, it matters, but ultimately whatever gets printed or on the air or posted online, that's all the customer sees. They don't see the stuff to make it. And
I mean, it just sounds such a tearjerker. Gosh, I almost got emotional listening to that. That's
well, it had a lot
awful.
of potential.
Oh yeah, a lot of potential.
But the execution was not very good, and
you could have put a lizard in it. You could have done some cross marketing
and stick to comedy. That's what I can do. Yes.
Well, okay, so I mean, gosh, you've done the what was the Sprout one with the and I was eating them at the time. They were like the bean chips.
Green bean harvest snaps.
Harvest snaps. You guys did the creative for that. I thought it was great.
That was a lot of fun.
What's let me ask this. What is when you were coming up,
mm-hmm.
Let me ask, okay, what was the one piece of advice you wish you had gotten from someone like you that you did not get?
I think practicing humility was something I had to learn through mistakes. And I think there were some really great people extended me a lot of grace when I was younger, right? Because I thought I was a hot shot. I mean, you do the Gecko and it blows up, and then I gets you a job somewhere else because it's it's a big campaign, and you start to believe that you're pretty special. And I think everyone's special, but you got to have some humility. And I think because it helps you connect with people better, right? If you have an air about you, like, do you know who you're talking to? That's the worst way to manage people. And so as I was a fairly young creative director, and I was managing people sometimes older than me, and I was a little immature, right? So I think if I had known a little bit how to practice humility a little bit better, I would have been a better manager. Now I've developed as a manager, and I think that I do a much better job at it now. But that was one thing I should have been better at.
That goes along the line. Go ahead.
I'll tell you a story that'll make you wince. I was working on a project for Progressive, actually, and sent a team out to California, and they were working with the director. They sent me some storyboards, and they emailed them to me, and I looked at them, and they were all wrong, right? Because it wasn't my vision that they were doing correctly. I called the producer and I said, "You get me on a plane and fly me to LA from Detroit right now." I flew into LA. An hour later, I got on a plane, flew into LA, and then flew back that night on the red eye. How pompous was that? That I demanded that the only way that this spot would work and get fixed is if I had a face-to-face with the director, because my team was incapable of doing it. And so I added more money to the budget, more stress. And I'm sure when I walked out of that production company, they said, "What an asshole." But the producer,
but was it effective?
Yeah. I mean, it got my vision clearer, but as a creative director, I should be able to give that vision over the phone or through an email or something. I shouldn't have to do it. I think it was more hubris than necessity that I flew out there. And to this day, I'm embarrassed. And I know the producer, she's a wonderful person, and that she put up with my tantrum.
Have you talked to her about it?
Yeah, I did. I apologized. When I left Donor in Detroit, I talked to her and I apologized. I said, "I was a jerk, and I appreciate you not calling me out on it." She's like, "Yeah, you were the worst."
Oh. Well, that goes along. It's really interesting. I don't know if I told you this. So we've been doing this show for about 8 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a chance to talk to some really great people, ones that have achieved a high level of success. And Ken, the common thread with all of you, really, and we'll get to this in a minute, but I shouldn't say this before you ask her. I know you, it's fine. The two common threads are appreciating grace, knowing the difference between being humiliated and having humility, but at the end of the day, being grateful. That's the number one thing, gratefulness.
Yeah.
All of you are grateful. Second thing is a strong spiritual foundation. Yeah. It is a common thread amongst people that have achieved some great things, you know, whether it be on the football field or creating the GEICO Gecko. You know, it's really those two things are what are a driving force with,
Bradley,
with
I
with all of you.
appreciate you putting me in the category with, you know, big time lawyers and professional athletes that you've talked to. But I mean, I've never thought that what I do is more important than it really is. You know what I mean? I think from people outside of our business, they probably go, I can't believe you made a career out of that. I mean, but what we do is important, right? We're helping businesses achieve their goals and get more customers and, you know, compete with their, you know, other. So, you know, I'm not trying to say what we're doing isn't important. It is, but I'm not, you know, we're not doctors and we're not lawyers and we're not, you know, doing that kind of work. And so I think just having perspective, no matter what you do for a living, having perspective on how important you are is a good thing. And again, it comes back to humility. And you're right. I am extremely grateful and fortunate for the people I've met and worked with who gave me chances. And I know that, and that's why it's very important for me to treat everyone I manage that way. It is paramount that I give the people who work for me the chance that I had, right? The chance to be great, the chance to grow. And a lot of times ego in our industry, at least the creative marketing industry, doesn't allow you to let someone else succeed because that means you're not as good. I'm happy to have my designers and my art directors and creative directors be better than me. In fact, they are. So I have no problem with that.
That's so big. That is so big. Wow. You know, there's this misconception, you know, well, the perception of people, I think, when they think of madmen, madwomen, is just what I mean. It's like a soap opera, you know, like the TV show, you know, and then maybe there's elements of that. There's elements of all of it that's true.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to brass tacks, it's how do you treat people? How are you teaching people? And, you know, I got a break at one time. What you just said, someone gave me a chance to be great. That's what I want to do too. And that is so big. That is so big. I want to pivot a little bit though. So you had mentioned like when we first met, right? You were at a point where you didn't feel like you were worth anything. Like in some shape or form,
yeah.
You know, well, those are your words. Those aren't my words. Which to me, and you know, and knowing you like I do for as many years as I have, I can't imagine that. You know, you've never been pompous. You were just one of the greatest. You're one of the greatest people I know, you know, and not for nothing. Like seriously, it's really the way I feel. And I don't know, you've really touched my life in an amazing way. You really, really have. But what about those people that are in the same boat as you. Maybe they don't have a Bradley Clark that they can call, or have even met. You know, what was that like for you? Like in that moment, like before we talked,
right?
What was that like?
Well, I was doing mental mathematics, right? I was worried about, how long I'd been in the industry, what kind of requirements I needed for salary. I'd been at this agency that I got laid off of for only 2 years. I thought that looked bad. And all these numbers were tumbling in my head going, I am screwed here, right? Who wants me, And I was thinking more about the worst I could look. And you were thinking about me the best I could look, right? And I think that's where I snapped out of my funk, right? I wasn't, the reality is there is a place for everyone. There really is. And you have to be patient and you have to be diligent enough to find it. But thinking that you're not good enough isn't a good tool. And it's a simple thing, right? And I'm not saying having false bravado and false, assessment of your skills. I think you need to be realistic about what you can and can't do. But
sure.
But I was, when I was at the Martin Agency, there were so many talented writers and art directors. They had awards, they were using awards as doorstops, and it was very intimidating because there were so many smart people in there. And for some reason, they thought that my ideas had value too. And and it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. I thought differently than they did, and they valued that. And so I think the lesson that you taught me was, okay, yes, you're 50 plus years old, and yes, this happened to you and whatever, but don't undervalue yourself, right? And what you can contribute. And so the next time I talked to somebody, I had that confidence back, right? And I knew that the person I'm talking to right now, this might not be a good fit. That doesn't mean I'm worthless. It just means it wasn't a good fit, or whatever, or they have a hang up or whatever, And so it's not about blindly believing in yourself. It's about not piling on unnecessary doubt and weakness. So I think there's being realistic about who you are and what you're capable of is very important, but you still need to have that confidence and don't devalue yourself. Someone else will have, there'll be plenty of people out there to do that. Don't do it to yourself. You're the last person who should do that.
Wow. That's so big. And you know what? So relatable. When I was at a very revolutionizing company, right? They were great. They were wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I get there and I'm talking to folks, and I am telling you, I kid you not, the genius in that one room during lunch is beyond my capability of oh God, they weren't. I'm still friends with all of them. They were the nicest people. They were so great, and they treated me so well. I was stone intimidated. And that is not a place I like to be. You know that.
I've been there.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then we do this mind thing with ourselves.
Yes.
Where it didn't dawn on me until, later. It's like, they hired you, dude. They at least think as highly of you as they do themselves. You're good.
Yeah.
But I was just so, and I felt a little, I was honored to be there, but super intimidated, and I had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with me.
Yeah.
Well,
do you talk to people about, imposter syndrome? Is there some way that there's a lot of that out there? It's like, I don't know, they're gonna figure out that I don't know anything.
Right.
I don't necessarily suffer from that, but some of my team does, and I feel my heart breaks, because like, you wouldn't be here if you weren't capable.
Well, and it's tough, man. I don't suffer from that. I mean, I know who I am.
But you've talked to people, I'm sure.
But I've talked to a lot. In fact, there was someone that I placed a few years ago, and she was, oh my gosh, Ken, like if there was a comparable person between you and someone in engineering, like you guys would mirror each other. Award winner, created iconic things that people use every day. Wow. She had a hand in creating. I mean, it was flat out insane. You know what I mean? A lot like you. And I am telling you, so I placed her, and she called me the first day, and she says, Brad, I love it here. I can't believe it, but I don't know if I'm that good. These people are amazing. And I'm like, well, so are you. Like, I think what with my problem is I didn't have me, and I didn't call you. That was my problem. But yeah, the imposter syndrome thing is real. It really is real. And people mistake that for humility. That's not humility.
It's not. It's self-doubt.
It's not. That's right. That's 1000% what it is. And if self-doubt creeps in, it's a killer, and it's a game changer. As far as a person's ability to move ahead and get going.
Right.
But let me ask this: how did you? And this is really for people in the same. I'm 50 years old. I'm doing this. I'm blah 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 blah. How did you? Because you didn't get the. I remember there was one company you really wanted to go to, and it didn't happen, and you were upset about that. I remember that. And then all of a sudden, here comes the company that you went to, and it was great. So what would you tell someone in the same boat? And you kind of already touched on it, but specifically somebody, let me put it this way. Somebody starting over.
Yeah.
At 50. What would you tell them?
Well, no one likes someone to come in and say, you know who you're talking to now? The guy, or the gal who did this, I think the humility is like, you can use your experience and say, look, I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work, and you can depend on me because I've done it. That's what I'm bringing, not swagger, not, the overconfident, jerk. I'm actually bringing years of capability and experience. And I think when I ended up getting my job, I had 2 offers in the same day. So it was really, it went from nothing to boom.
All of a sudden. Yeah.
And I think I had the attitude of, I'm coming in to serve a purpose and do my job, and not be a boss and try to correct everything. I'm here to produce for you guys. That's my first goal, is to make great stuff for you. And I think people need to know that, employers need to know that your main goal is to do great work, not to change the department or fix the trajectory of the creative work. Or no, I'm coming here. I'm going to use my years of experience to create great work and work my ass off for you.
That is agnostic. That is industry agnostic.
Right.
And
you've proven that you can do that because you've been doing it your whole career. Someone younger is a gamble.
Wow. So, okay. So a lot of the advice is, especially now, because I feel like we live in a more confrontational, maybe not confrontational, but certainly a more like an angry society. Right. So you have to be, quote unquote, I'm not saying this isn't my advice, but society will tell you that you don't have to be swaggerish, but you have to look like you could whoop some ASS if you had to. For us, it's a little
employers
different.
Are looking for
it's
that.
A little different. It's a little different. Well, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, what I heard this one from a revenue officer one time. He says there's nothing worse than soft salesperson. There's nothing worse. And I'm like, maybe. But what I'm saying is, maybe when you're the younger guy and you've done some things, you've proven yourself, you can, I can do this. That's one thing. But coming in at, say, late 40s, 50s, you're not looked at that way. You're not in a wheelchair, or a rocking chair talking about, you're not get off my lawn old, but you've seen some things. So instead of trying to compete with somebody that has less experience than you, maybe, I don't know, act like you've been there before. It's one, when people do that, like you said, all of a sudden they become a servant leader. All of a sudden, when it's it's a different conversation when you're getting paid pretty significantly to serve. That's powerful.
Yeah. That's my first talk with any new agency I've ever come into. I said, look, I'm here to serve you and help you do your best work. If that means I take some banner ads off your hands, I mean, you ask my team, the work I do now is the trivial stuff, so they can work on the better work. And I just finished some banners last week, and like, wait a minute.
Look at you. I just finished some banners last week.
You're in the Advertising Hall of Fame and you're doing emails for a local barbecue place. Yes, I am. Because my art director now is working on the biggest TV project in the agency. And I'm not going to suck that up for me because I've done it before, right? Now, I mean, I'm very, very fortunate that I've had the chance to work on amazing projects with incredible budgets and great clients and great directors and actors. And so I don't have the burning desire to do that all the time anymore. I want my team to experience that. I want them to get the same things that I've had to do. I've had the chance to do.
Is that attitude rare in the business?
I think it's more prevalent now than it used to be. But yes, being a servant leader is a mantra of mine. And my creative director who works for me, I warned him. I said, this is how I operate. And since you're management, I expect you to operate the same way. And if it's a problem, you have to tell me now. Because that's what we're here for. We're here to help them do their best work. Now, I'm sure my boss is like, no, we want another gecko out of you.
Well, if it comes, man. I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of being an artist, at the end of the day.
Plenty of work to go around, by the way. There's plenty of opportunities to go around. So.
Oh my gosh, Ken. That is amazing. That is amazing. All right, we're gonna take one more break and then we'll wrap it up here with Ken Spera. Stay tuned.
White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films. You'll be glad you did.
Hey everybody, we're back with Ken Spera. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Let me tell you right now, everyone within the sound of my voice, and Ken, you know, I told you offline or off air, I needed this today. I really did.
What way?
And thank you so much, man.
Can you
What do I mean?
that?
Yeah. So you know, we're being very transparent. We're at a point now where, you know, we're looking at sponsors, we're looking at getting sponsors, we're looking at, different avenues. So Work Your Career Wednesday can still grow.
Yeah.
But like, for example, I have never, well, I wouldn't say never, it's very rare. I've really not talked much about the experience I had at that company. You know, it was all me. I brought this energy because I was so impressed with how smart these people were. And they were the nicest people. Again, friends to this day.
Yeah.
But I was so intimidated. And, I look at it and I go, why? Why was I so intimidated? I mean, they hired me. You know what I mean? Like, so they know I can do this job. I was just so intimidated. And it didn't affect the quality of my work. And it certainly didn't affect my creativity. But
you emotionally, though.
Emotionally, yeah, it got me. I was I was the guy that would work, start at 5 a.m. and then end whenever I ended. Partially because, well, at the time the job demanded it, but it was partially I had already earned my spot.
Yeah.
But I was still trying to earn my spot.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, I needed this today. I know so many other people need it too. So we talked about leadership, what you would tell your younger self, when you're getting in the advice that you didn't get.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you look for when you hire someone?
Well, I think when it comes to hiring creative professional, the work is really the first thing you see and ultimately makes the decision. So that is a tangible, easy thing to look at. In other industries where I don't know if they're going to be a good salesman. I don't know if they're going to be a good personnel person. I mean, those things are a little harder to judge. You have to judge the connection you have with them in the interview or how, their experience. But with creative, whether it's a writer or a designer, art director, you can look at the work and really see if they have quality ideas. Now, I'm not trying to diminish the fit, the
aspect
fit well into the team and your personality. Not too many people in their interviews come across as a pompous jerk, and that they may turn into once you hire them. I haven't had a lot of that happen, but so I think in this business, the professional creative business, it does come down to what the work looks like. Now, I do want to make sure people are not too shy or inward, because our business is about communication, not just about the work we make communicates, but also selling that work, communicating to clients, and hearing communication, right? You've got to take input and figure out how to make changes to your work so that it's better. So that is important, that I get a sense that someone is a good listener and can look me in the eye and clearly explain, their process or how they do work or how they approach it. And I ask that all the time. It's like, well, I really like this project. How did you do it? And I want to hear from them for two things. I want to hear their process just to see what it is, but I also want them to look me in the eye and sell me on that. When they finish explaining that project, I want to go, wow, I really like that. I don't want a 2-sentence answer. Well, I did it in school because my teacher told me to do it.
It was a project.
I want them to get into the strategy and the reasoning why it made sense to them. And in that kind of conversation, I get a sense of two things. You're a smart strategic thinker, and you can explain why. And that takes you a long way in our business, explaining your reasons. If you can do that, you could probably sell a lot of work or convince people that you have the right answer.
I love that. How often do senior creative directors, executive creative directors, SVPs in this business, how often do they try to look and hire themselves in terms of the work?
It is the biggest trap. The ego, I would say less of hiring themselves, more of, I'm going to hire someone I think that I'm better than. So I still remain the boss and the top dog, right? Wow. Why would I hire someone who I think is more creative than me? No, thank you.
You know what? That is, I will tell you, that's across the board. And we'll talk offline about that, but that is across the board. There's people that do that. Incredibly intimidated by someone else's talent. That's amazing.
The thing is, though, Bradley, if I'm a creative director and I hire the most brilliant art director who's 10 times more talented than me, everything he or she does reflects on me as a manager, right? If I can get great work out of somebody,
now you're preaching.
That's my accomplishment.
Right.
They still deserve the accolades of doing the work. Yeah. I deserve the accolades of getting them to do the work.
And they wouldn't have done it without the leadership. Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good. And that is literally across the board. I don't care if you're a controller or I had a controller one time tell me this. I kid you not. We were hiring for like a senior accountant, and they had to do a project, and they turned it in. It was really good. With a straight face, this woman looked at me and said, "It's a little too good." I said, "What are you talking about? It's too good. That's like how, you know what I mean? Like, how could it be?" She goes, "No, I don't want her to be better than me." Straight face, not kidding. I started laughing because I thought she was joking, and just looked at me like, no, seriously, Brad, really. That is so huge. That is so huge.
So if you can have as much fulfillment and pride in helping someone do something great,
yes,
that's the turn, right? As a creative manager, I need to feel that kind of accomplishment and sense of accomplishment when someone else does a great job, and not always be the one that comes up with the idea. And it is a maturity. It's a maturity, especially with creative people, because you want to be the person that comes up with the idea.
Sure.
And you have to mature out of that. And there are a lot of great creatives who make horrible managers because they just have this need to be the one that comes up with the idea. And they maybe shouldn't be managers. Maybe they should be just creating great ideas, and that's their better place.
And I would love for this to be like a 3 or 5 hour podcast because there's so much to cover. I hope that you will come back. You have an open invitation anytime you'd like. And I certainly will call you. I can. You want to go do the show today? You want to do the show? There's so much more I want to cover, but my goodness, what an introduction to Ken Spera. If you've ever wondered who's behind some of the most iconic ads you've ever seen, this is the man. And Ken, not only do I want to thank you for coming on today, but I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your friendship, and my heart is just so full. I thank you, man. Thank you for everything.
Well, Bradley, was it 6 years ago I talked to you for the first time in my life, and you're still doing the same thing, making me feel great. So
And you're the best, really.
I never
brother.
So thanks for having me on. I don't know why
best.
people would want to listen to this, but I'm honored that you invited me.
Look, there's several reasons, and we'll get into them offline. But for everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And I got to tell you, this has been a conversation that I know I need, and I can guarantee you that this is going to go out to everyone else who needs to hear it. So until next time, for everybody at Work Your Career Wednesday and White Husky Films, let me just tell you one more time that I love you and God bless you. Let His face shine upon you and give you great peace. Be excellent to yourself and each other. And we will see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hey, if you like Work Your Career Wednesday and want to be notified every single time we have a new episode, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Smash it. Get a hammer and get it. And
Yeah, that's fine.
Too much?
No, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I love it. People want.
Do you hear Steven in the background? I was just making sure I'm going to be okay. But get that notification going. And hey, we will be letting you know, or I guess YouTube will be letting you know, when the next Work Your Career Wednesday is on. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Man, ding it, ring it, sling it, and bo-bang it. All right? And we will see you soon. Work Your Career Wednesday. Oh, great. I'm glad you stopped by. Be sure to get that subscription bell, and I'll see you there.